Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new video. Today I wanted to answer a question that I get very frequently, and that is, how do you find profitable flips in old school RuneScape? Item selection is one of the most important parts of flipping and is the part that takes the most knowledge and practice to get right. Luckily it is really easy to do. Anyway guys, I hope you find this useful, I hope you enjoy, and let's get started. So I'm going to be doing this primarily with free-to-play items just so it appeals to everyone, but I will be mentioning a few pay-to-play items as well. So to begin with here, a person who is flipping who can find their own items is always going to come out on top of someone who's running through the exact same items every day. Being able to adapt and think of completely new ideas is really what's going to make you a lot more money. I could give you a list of 100 items, but that list might not be accurate months from now, and that is why it's so important to find your own items. However, you can generally look through certain categories, which will almost always have profitable items in them. So normally I split this into two categories, high volume flips and high margin flips. High volume flips are going to be cheaper items that you buy thousands of for just 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 GP margins. And high margin flips are going to be items that you buy a low volume of, but for larger margins. For example, a high margin item would be the Hill Giant Club, which is one of the more expensive items in free to play. A high volume item would be like a Death Rune. So let's start with high volume flips because they are very easy to explain and very easy to get going finding your own items. So in free to play, categories that work pretty well are logs, food, fish, runes, ammunition, and even runite armor. Any items in these categories are going to work pretty well. So for example here, let's try the Death Rune. All you need to do is a quick margin check by buying it for more than 5% and selling it back for less than 5%. It's really simple like that because you're never going to be losing much money checking this item because it's going to be so cheap, and you're going to benefit by buying thousands of it, which is going to pay back much more than the like 3 or 4 GP that you might lose on it. In this case, 3 GP. So from here, all you do is buy it for the low price, and you're going to buy, let's say, 10,000 of them. So in this flip, I will make around 30,000 coins. So one quick tip for high volume items is knowing the buy-in limits. I would heavily recommend downloading a Rune Lite and getting the Grand Exchange plugin, because you can see right here, it displays the known buying limits. It won't have it for every item, but for high volume items, it'll have them mostly. For example here, the buy-in limit is 10,000. What that means is every 4 hours, you can't buy more than 10,000 of that item. So if I were to go and try to buy 10,001, my offer would stop at 10,000 until 4 hours had passed, and then I would get another 10,000 to work with. So for that reason alone, I generally like to drop it down a little bit lower than 10,000. The reason for that is if I want to go check the margin later, I won't be able to because I would have hit the buy-in limit. I'd have to go into a separate account or just guess what the margin is. It's really nice to drop it down a few quantity. It won't really affect your profit and just makes things easier. If you are really lost on what items to flip, just quickly look through your own history. That is a very good way to get a baseline of items that people would be buying on a consistent basis. Mine is pretty random. However, it should still give you some insights. Another thing you can do is look through the skill guides if you're still unsure on what in-market items might be bought and traded a lot. So for example, if we have a look at the fishing guide, we can have a look at what items that people are going to be fishing. So we have, we could try trout, that's free to play, salmon, tuna, lobsters, swordfish, or if you're into membership, you could try flipping sharks, karambwans, monkfish. So let's go here, let's try raw swordfish. That is something that people do fish, so we'll go ahead and try buying one. We bought it for $3.94, and we're going to sell it for $3.93. Not a very good margin on that one. Let's try something else. Maybe we'll just try raw tuna for 91 coins into 93 coins. The buy-in limit is 15,000 on raw tuna, which is kind of nice. And we'll go do 15,000 of them for about 1.3 mil invested. Now in free to play, you will obviously be limited in the amount of items you can do. However, there will still be quite a number of high volume items to do in free to play. In pay to play, some recommended high volume items are stuff like seeds, potions, crafting materials, planks, ammunition, and of course all of the free to play items as well. I find myself doing free to play items just as much as pay to play items, even in membership. However, let's just do a quick pay to play item here. So let's try the oak plank. We'll go ahead and price check it quickly here. So we bought it for 486 and we're going to sell it for 480. So a 6 GP margin, which is quite good. The buy limit is 13,000, so let's just go for 12,000, and simple as that. So the main benefits to high volume items are they're very easy to do, no risk in checking what the margin is, and also you have the potential to make quite a bit of money, especially if you end up waiting a bit, because sometimes the items will change in price pretty drastically, and even if they change by 10 GP and you've invested into thousands of that item, it can end up paying off a lot. The downsides are that you are going to be hitting buying limits pretty frequently. Generally, the amount of money you can make will be consistent but lower than high volume items, and they require more active checking. It's not an item that you want to leave in for 24 hours because it will have bought within the first half an hour most likely, and you'll just be wasting a lot of time. So just for example here, we made, let's see how much on the oak plank. So we bought them for 5,760 and we sold them for 5,840. So we made about 80,000 coins just off of these oak planks in just a few minutes here. So that's a very good flip, and that's a good example of how powerful high volume flips can be if you're around, actively paying attention to your offers, and keep cycling through items as quickly as possible. So now moving on to high margin flips, I would consider this to be a little bit more advanced than high volume flips. However, it is still very easy. So let's talk free-to-play items here. So high margin items in free-to-play are going to be items like clue scroll rewards. Clue scroll rewards cannot be obtained in free-to-play, but they are a free-to-play item, so they can be bought and sold. So they tend to not be sold very much, which causes them to be more expensive and have higher margins. Other examples are just rare drops and event items, or just other expensive items. So example items are going to be the Shaman Mask, which is just a rare drop from the Ogre Shamans. The Disc of Returning, Trimmed Runite Armor, Gilded Armor is a very expensive free-to-play item, and the Hill Giant Club. So other items like Runite Armor or Rune Weaponry, while it is more expensive, I would consider that more to be a high volume item because it comes through very quickly, and while the margins do tend to be more than regular high volume items, it's kind of a weird interim between the two. However, flipping rune items is always going to be viable to some extent. However, just to give you an example here, so this is something that people try to flip a lot. Let's try the rune plate body, 38,659, and we're going to sell it for 38,644. So that is not a very good item to do because it's very expensive, and we're only getting a margin of like 15 coins. And to top it all off, it has a buy limit of 70. So you're only going to be getting like 1,000 or 2,000 coins off of a full buying limit flip. And that is why I would generally not recommend doing items like this. If we're going to do a high volume item, you might as well do something like a death rune, piece of food, or something like that. If you're going to do a high margin flip, you might as well go all the way at the other side and just go for extremely rare items that will have very good margins on it. Okay, so the largest category for free to play high margin items is going to be clue scroll rewards. That is going to be any of the trimmed armor sets. So let's have a look at like the steel plate legs G. So it's really hard to know the general prices here. So there's a few different strategies you can go with here. You can literally just guess. And because these items are so infrequently traded, that offer could just go through. Because it's possible that you are the only one with an offer in for steel plate legs. And if someone gets it from a clue scroll, they are going to just dump it in here as soon as possible. They might even toss it in for 1 GP. So one strategy is like, okay, 24K, let's just try buying it for 15K. And we'll just see if that buys. So we'll just put that offer in. Now this is where you have to be very patient. When I advise people to do this, they don't realize that this can take days sometime. However, the amount of effort you need to put in is very low, and you're able to snipe items very easily, which is especially effective when you don't have that much money. For example, if you were to buy this for 15,000, it's definitely within the realm of possibility you could sell it for 40,000. The sky's the limit on stuff like this. And when you don't have much money to work with, that can be extremely useful. Let's say you had 100K, you could buy like 6 or 7 of these. And if you got a 25K profit on each one of those, you could be doubling or tripling your cash stack, as opposed to going the high volume route where you'd be maybe getting 1,000 coins in profit per flip or something like that. So that's one strategy. The other strategy is to price check it. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this all the time, but let's just have an example look here. So for the exact same item here, the steel plate legs G, we're going to go ahead and try price checking it. So we'll try buying it for 100,000 coins, and we'll see if we instantly buy one, which we did. We bought it for 48,000. Interesting. And now let's go ahead and sell one. So we'll dump it in for, we'll just try dumping it in for 24,000. And we did sell it for 37,500. So we were not correct at all. Now, that's not to say that this offer might never have gone through. It still could have. But now we have a good example of what the margin is going to be. So let's go now. We would go buy it for 37,500. Now, this is probably a good point to talk about undercutting. Now, this is kind of a debatable topic all the time. So what is undercutting? It's just essentially, instead of buying this for 37,500, I buy it for 37,501. Now, the reason for that is, if someone were to sell that item, now it would go to me because I have the highest offer. If I put it in for the same price, it will be split between us, or most likely go to him first because he had his offer in for a longer period of time. My stance on this has been, for high margin items, it's kind of fair game. Only one person is going to be successfully flipping this at once. If you put it in for the same price, this could make your flip take days. And there's such a big margin on it that you're not going to be undercutting the actual margin itself. For high volume flips, I would not undercut because there is not much of a margin to work with here. And it's changing so frequently, multiple people could be trying to flip this item at once that you'll just be destroying the margin right away. However, it's kind of inevitable because everyone does it, but you guys gotta be better than them. So back to high margin items. So an item like these steel plate legs, that's gonna take a long time. That could take a full day to do a flip on it. So an item like the Hill Giant Club. So this is definitely a high margin item. It's an expensive item, but it's gonna be traded more than this steel plate legs G. Now the reason for that is it's a drop in game as opposed to a clue scroll item. So for an item like this where I know that it is still in market enough that people will be trading it, it's less risky to do a price check on it because you know the margin is still going to be kind of reasonable. And hey, look, we bought the steel plate legs already. That was actually very quick. Let's try selling it for 48,000. Okay, so we bought the Hill Giant Club for 1 million coins exactly, and we are going to sell it for 961,000 coins. So that is a 40k margin. Wow, let's try for 4 of them. So one thing to keep in mind is when you are checking the margin, you're essentially losing one quantity worth of that flip. So when you're doing a high margin flip, you want to flip at least 5 or 6 of that item. You don't want to go ahead and price check the item and then just go buy one after, because that is just going to end up with you breaking even. Generally, I try to do at least 5 of the item afterwards, or else it kind of seems like a waste of time. And the last strategy here for high margin items as well as high volume items is using GE Tracker. They are a sponsor of mine, and while they are very useful, it's not the only way to find these items, but they have a dedicated high margin tab for all items, free to play or membership alike. You can filter between membership and free to play items, as well as filtering between different prices for how much money you have to work with here. So if you only have 500,000 coins, and there's also a high volume item section as well, just to give you some ideas on what items to flip. The prices here are not super important. You still want to check all these prices yourself, but giving you a good idea of items is always going to be useful. Anyway guys, that is pretty much it. I hope you guys found this useful. If you have any other questions related to this, don't hesitate to ask any questions in the comment section below. I'll try to get back to you. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.